David Aardsma hangs out with us today. Baseball winter meetings going on in Orlando. Big signing there. How much work, how many deals really get done at the winter meetings now? It's not like it used to be when I was a kid and used to sit there and clamor for the winter meetings and lots of wheeling and dealing. I don't know how much of that happens anymore. Talk about that with David. Also get his thoughts on Jeff Kent being the latest to be announced as a Hall of Famer. He'll be enshrined in Cooperstown next summer. We'll talk about that with David. I'm curious, did he face Jeff Kent? Because their careers did overlap. We'll talk about that as well with David Aardsma coming up a little later on. Some NFL to get to in 10 minutes. We'll talk about the Chargers win over the Eagles in overtime last night. Third straight loss for the Eagles. We'll get into that and some injury news from around the league. But as always, we start things with the big story on this Tuesday. And, you know, it's amazing to me. Isn't it amazing? It's amazing to me that we went through this whole Lane Kiffin drama that played out over the last few weeks. And you had Ole Miss and Kevin Carter, the AD, and the school and the administration deciding, no, Lane Kiffin. You can't have your cake and eat it too. They did it at Tulane. They did it at James Madison. You know, other schools that have said, hey, we're going to let our coach in the playoffs, even though they're leaving to go to another school. And I understand this is different because he's leaving to go to another powerhouse school within the conference in LSU. I get all that. But ultimately, you had Ole Miss make this decision to basically cast away Lane Kiffin. Pete Golding becomes the new head coach, the defensive coordinator, and it just wasn't allowed. It wasn't possible to have Lane Kiffin there because he might poach players, and maybe some of the players didn't want him there, whatever it may be. But then, ever since we've heard the news of Lane Kiffin leaving for LSU, and ever since we've heard the news of Pete Golding becoming the head coach, there's been this trickle of information that comes out. First, it was Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator, and him finding out, he's going to be allowed to come back over and coach Ole Miss during the playoffs. Okay, it's the offensive coordinator, right? I mean, it's a big role, and the team wants to give itself the best chance to win in the playoffs, even though Lane Kiffin will actually be the one to profit off of Ole Miss's success in the playoffs, even though he's not coaching the team. Put that aside for a second. Then you see the news on Monday that at least 4 more assistants that are currently employed by LSU, formerly coaches at Ole Miss, are going to be back at Ole Miss to help them get ready for and coach the team in the college football playoff game against Tulane. Let's just stop and marinate in this for a second. Let's just think about this. You're not going to allow Lane Kiffin, who I argued from the start should be allowed to coach, but I understand their rationale for not letting him coach Ole Miss in the playoffs. That logic made sense when he took the coaches and took everybody else to LSU other than Pete Golding, who's staying on to become the head coach of the team. It made sense to me when he did that and the school decided, you're taking all these coaches from us, whatever, you're going to a team within the conference, we can't have you here. But when everybody else, not named Lane Kiffin, is allowed to come back and coach the team, and Lane Kiffin is the only one who's not coming back to coach the team in the playoffs, now I'm saying something doesn't add up here. Because the argument that, Lane Kiffin could be trying to convince players to transfer to LSU next year, he's going to poach guys from the roster, he's going to poison the well at Ole Miss. Well, when every other assistant of Lane Kiffin is allowed to come back to Ole Miss and coach the team, it tells me there's something else at play here. It tells me that Lane Kiffin, despite what Kevin Carter might have said throughout Lane Kiffin's tenure and the success that Lane Kiffin had, it tells me there's something more personal at play here. There's something more nefarious that had to have taken place that we do not yet know of. But we will in due course, because all of these things leak out with time, the tell-all books, all of this stuff. At some point, we're going to find out that there had to be something more at play here. Because to have Charlie Weiss Jr. come back, to have 4 other assistants come back, something doesn't make sense here. I'm calling shenanigans. Big story number 2. Pete Bevacqua. You know, I was taught something as a kid. When you're in a hole, stop digging. Pete Bevacqua, the athletic director at Notre Dame, you're in a hole. Stop digging. I mean, are you trying to become supervillains? It's bad enough Notre Dame already has sort of this villainous reputation around college football because of its independent status, its deal with NBC and Peacock, that, you know, this national team when college football doesn't really have one. It has a national conference, the SEC, but there's no national team quite like Notre Dame, which people already kind of hold against them. And what some people have thought over the years up until this year was preferential treatment when it came to things like the BCS and now the college football playoff. So when you get Pete Bevacqua on Dan Patrick's show yesterday, espousing that the ACC did him wrong, when all they did was the typical politicking that takes place every year in college football around trying to get teams from your conference or your team in particular into the playoffs. For Pete Bevacqua now to stand up and cry foul and say the damage, the irreparable harm that's been done between us and the ACC, give me a break, Pete Bevacqua. The only people you're talking to now, it's almost like politics. You're only talking to the people in your silo. Everybody else is tuning your crap out. And all you're doing is making Notre Dame look worse on the national landscape. Not better, worse. If that's your goal, keep digging. We're coming back with some NFL. Chargers knock off the Eagles. We'll get to it next. Welcome back to this Tuesday edition of the show. I've had my say in the big story. And now the rest of the show. David Aardsma coming up in 10 minutes, 20 minutes. We'll talk with him about the baseball winter meetings, also the Jeff Kent Hall of Fame announcement, get his thoughts on that. Some more NFL to get to coming up in about 10 minutes as well. Sam Yarnell is here. Eagles lose again. Make it 3 in a row. 22-19, Chargers taking down Philly in overtime in Los Angeles last night. Jalen Hurts, 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, a fumble, 2 turnovers on 1 play. Not something you see every day. Not something that I think anybody's ever seen before. Sam Yarnell. And I'm going to take a slightly more optimistic approach when it comes to the Eagles, I think, than some people are. Yes, they've lost 3 in a row. But here's the reality. They still lead the division. They're probably still going to win the division. And they're losing close games. And they're not even playing well. And they're losing close games. So to me, while I understand it's about wins and losses and you are what your record says you are and this offense is clearly struggling, there is still time for all the teams that we talk about. And we talk about pedigree, and we talk about, this is a Super Bowl defending team. I am less concerned in the overall. In the micro, I'm worried because Jalen Hurts had 5 turnovers last night. In the micro, I'm worried because they just can't seem to get it all on the same page offensively. But from the macro, from the 30,000-foot view, there is still time for the Eagles here.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him at all, Jason. And I think there's a copious overreaction to this Eagles performance last night, and I guess the last 3 weeks on the whole. Now, yes, you're right. There are like very small things that you can nitpick, right? The running game, while it looked great last night, still isn't all the way back, right? You had the one explosive from Saquon, but if you take that out, he only averaged like 3.6 yards a carry. The numbers aren't great there. AJ Brown continues this run. He seems to go on this run every year where it's like 4 straight or 5 straight games of 100+ yards. He's at 3 straight right now, so we're going to keep betting on that for the next couple of weeks. But I'm not worried. Like, every quarterback in the NFL runs into this every once in a while. You've seen the greats of the great do it, right?
Same thing, Sam. I thought the same exact thing before we cracked the mics today. I thought the same exact thing. I'm like, every quarterback's had a game like this.
It happens every year in the NFL. And quite frankly, this is something I grappled with last night. As bad as this Jalen Hurts performance was, and I know numbers wise, was it worse than Patrick Mahomes' performance over the weekend? I don't know that I'd venture to say that it was. And part of the reason that I think my belief lands that way is because the Dallas Cowboys threw up all over themselves last Thursday night. This is a completely different conversation we're having, Jason Page, if the Dallas Cowboys record is 1 win better than it currently is. Because then, well, look, now, you only have I guess, what is that, a game and a half separation between the Cowboys and Eagles with the tie, or however that works out. And the Cowboys start to feel like they're breathing down the Eagles' necks a little. The way that it landed, though, like you said, Eagles are going to cruise to the NFC East title. They don't need to worry about anything. And the big things look good, so you'll worry about fixing the little things over the last 3 weeks of the regular season.
But there is something you bring up. And I was thinking about this last night as I was watching the game. I had to go and dig and look at the win-loss records and things like that. Nick Sirianni had no interest in playing for a tie last night. Because if he did, he would have played it safe. They would have kicked their field goal, taken the tie. And the reality is, because of that Cowboys tie, a tie would have been advantageous to Philadelphia in that spot last night. Just a little bit of padding, a little bit of extra security. The loss slowly, it creaks open the door for Dallas. I'm not saying Dallas is going to walk through it. I'm not saying Dallas is going to win anything. They could win out. But still, last night was another one of these examples of Nick Sirianni overthinking this thing. Take the tie. Kick the field goal. Make the Chargers drive the field in that spot if you have to. But take the tie if you're Nick Sirianni and at least guarantee yourself, the half point, so to speak, like you'd think about it in hockey. Go and get yourself the tie in that spot and give yourself a little more padding in the division potentially. I thought that, again, it was one of these instances of Nick Sirianni, smartest guy in the room, he'll tell you so, maybe overthinking in terms of the way they managed the final couple of minutes of that game. On a night where Jalen Hurts wasn't playing well, sometimes you got to take the ball out of his hands and just take the tie.
Well, I think your gripe there then is with Kevin Patullo, right? Because we don't know. Maybe Nick Sirianni was planning to. They're down at the 17-yard line with 2 minutes to go in overtime, right? Like maybe Sirianni was planning to run the ball or not necessarily run the ball, but kick the field goal if that's what it came down to. But it seems like Philadelphia has very quickly gotten tired of Kevin Patullo, and it feels like, Jason, you kind of sympathize with that because, why are you throwing the ball on the 17-yard line, right, when a tie is acceptable? The play calling, and that's an instance of it, right, but the play calling that entire game and the last few weeks from Philadelphia has really been shocking in a lot of different aspects, right, between the run game struggling and the overcalling of the pass game. I don't know, man. Kevin Patullo is not long to be an NFL offensive coordinator, and it just feels like this is another reason why he's going to get fired inevitably.
It is, and I know you could put it on him, but the buck ultimately stops with the head coach in that spot. And just like Kevin Stefanski didn't actually make the play call that went into, this trick play that they ran on the 2-point conversion, it was the offensive coordinator, but Kevin Stefanski took the fall for it. And he should, because he's the head coach, and ultimately the buck stops with you. I think in that spot, Sirianni's got to overrule him and just say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to keep throwing the ball down here when our quarterback's already got 3 interceptions on the night and 4 turnovers. That's just my way of thinking about it.
Yeah, the Sirianni narrative with Philadelphia fans continues to be one that I'm very interested in watching closely, right? We know that Patullo is a Sirianni guy, and that's how he was anointed the offensive coordinator. I'm very curious to see how the, rivalry that I'm convinced exists between Sirianni and Roseman plays itself out via Patullo.
I mean, if it goes bad and they go out like first week of the postseason, I wonder how much goodwill that Sirianni has in that organization, coming off a Super Bowl and then getting bounced early in the postseason. That will be a fascinating watch as well in Philadelphia. All right, we got more NFL on the other side. A couple of injuries on the quarterback front to talk about next. Welcome back inside the SportsWrap studios in Las Vegas. I am Jason Page. I can't be lying. It says it right there on the screen. David Aardsma, the former MLB reliever, he will join us. Our MLB analyst. Get some thoughts with him on the winter meetings going on in Orlando and some very interesting comments from Tigers management regarding everybody on their roster, and everybody includes a certain Cy Young Award winner. Let's get him, Yankees. Come on, let's go. Sam Yarnell rejoins us for some weekend leftovers. NFL Week 14 edition. All right, let's talk some injuries, Sam, and start with Daniel Jones, who goes down. And it's just, no matter what I think of this Colts situation, they were 7-1, and I'll relive my prediction when they were 7-1, and I said they were frauds, which has turned out to be accurate, injuries or no injuries. And then Daniel Jones has this fracture in one leg. Then he tears the ACL or tears the Achilles, pops the Achilles on Sunday in a loss to the Jaguars, who may ultimately wind up being your AFC South Division winners. And now you've got this whole situation with who this team is thinking about as far as their next quarterback is concerned. But start with the Daniel Jones side of this, Sam. And who knows how much of this has to do with him playing on that fractured leg? Are you compensating? Are you doing different things in different ways? Who knows? We'll never really know the answer to that. All of that notwithstanding, though, give me a thought on sort of, I don't know if we've ever seen a team that got off to this kind of start, had this kind of, beat behind it. What they're doing offensively, all the points they're scoring, both sides of the ball. Jonathan Taylor should be the MVP, and just fall off a cliff the way the Colts have.
We saw it from the Eagles a few years ago. This is that dramatized, man. This is like exactly like we thought, Jason, you and I specifically thought, 6, not even 6, more than that, 10, maybe less than that, weeks ago, between 6 and 10 weeks ago, we sat up here saying, oh, well, the Eagles, they're starting this slide, and, maybe it's somewhat reminiscent of the Eagles from 2023. No, turns out it's the Indianapolis Colts, and it was always the Indianapolis Colts, right? It's very, very fascinating to see how this thing has completely flipped on its head, and the thing that has gone from being the feel-good story of the NFL in 2025 is a dumpster fire rolling down the block.
It is, and it gets even more interesting, because with Anthony Richardson hurt, the orbital bone injury, the freak accident that happened in the locker room, with Riley Leonard being your backup, who, by the way, I didn't think played terrible getting thrown in and thrust into that spot. But apparently there's enough panic in that organization that they felt the need to go and work out 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, who's been retired since 2020. He's on the Hall of Fame ballot this year, Sam. He's on the Hall of Fame ballot. And they're talking about Phillip Rivers potentially rejoining this team, I guess feeding 17 mouths or however many kids he has requires another paycheck from the NFL. I don't know.
Yeah, very clearly got tired of being a father to 10 children
10,
at
there you
home
go.
and needed to come out of retirement. I mean, I would too, Philip. I completely understand it. No, in all seriousness, though, there are so many questions that this brings up, right? First of all, is the Indianapolis quarterback room cursed? Because you cannot somehow be an Indianapolis quarterback without suffering some sort of freak injury this year, right? Daniel Jones, you mentioned Anthony Richardson, you mentioned Riley Leonard. I mean, we know even before that, Flacco was getting hurt all the time. Phillip Rivers suffered a bunch of injuries in Indianapolis. Like, there's just something cursed about that Indianapolis quarterbacks room. On the Phillip Rivers Hall of Fame thing, it actually, to me, it's a very interesting conversation with regard to NFL history, right? Does this reset his Hall of Fame clock? Does he get taken off the ballot and then put on again in 5 years? In which case, and if that is the case, then you have to start to have the conversation. Is it all a conspiracy from Phillip Rivers realizing he's not going to get in this quarterback class, but he could get in 5 years? Obviously, that's just a hair bit too much tinfoil hat for myself, but I am very interested to see if his clock is reset in terms of the ballot.
It's a great question. I'll ask Jason Cole that. I'll shoot him a text message and find out. I would think it would reset his clock, but I'm not exactly sure. Then there's Jaden Daniels. And I was as shocked as anyone last week to find out they were putting him back on the field, recovering from this dislocated elbow. And apparently amazing quick healing powers from Jaden Daniels. I'd love to have that superpower, especially at the age of 48. But Jaden Daniels goes out there and gets hurt on what is a pretty typical sort of NFL play. And what it leads me to ask is, how could he have ever been put back out on the field if it was that easy for him to get hurt again on such a sort of innocuous play? Again, something you see in the NFL all the time. I mean, he could have fallen like that a million different ways, not just getting hit on a block after an interception or a fumble. I'm trying to figure out, again, what are the Commanders doing? What is the risk reward of having put him back out on the field, given that this could have happened, Sam?
Well, I think this was the exact opposite of what we talked about when he got hurt, right? He gets hurt in a situation where he shouldn't have even been in the game. They take him out as the most precautionary thing possible to do in this instance. I actually thought this was the right decision, right? They said after the game, right, he very easily could have gone back in. He was healthy enough to go back in, but they kept him out for precautionary reasons. It feels like the Commanders learned from their mistake very quickly. I'm actually hopeful about the entire situation.
Well, the other question it does start to bring up is just how injury prone this guy is. And, is he going to be somebody that's long for this league? Is he going to be somebody that's long for, being able to play this game at this level? One of the things we all pointed to when he first came to the league, he is sort of slight. He's not built like Josh Allen. He's not built like even Jordan Love, who could take a hit. Patrick Mahomes, he's not built that way. And you just wonder if sort of the slight build and frame of this quarterback is going to be made to withstand season after season in the NFL. We'll have to wait and see. That's it for weekend leftovers. But we've got odds and ends around the corner. And there is another leftover to get to that involves football, but not the football you think. We'll get to that and a note from the world of golf next. Welcome back on this Tuesday, where we're talking some baseball. MLB's Winter Meetings going on in Orlando. Over the weekend, Jeff Kent announced as the latest induction into the Hall of Fame next year. I want to get to all of that with our friend David Aardsma, who's here. MLB analyst. SiriusXM MLB Radio. Man Cave Sports. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's got it.
World traveler. He just had a nice vacation.
Yes.
I lived vicariously through his pictures. It was wonderful.
I don't post enough. I need to start posting more.
You post plenty. Your wife posts enough. Your wife makes up for it with what you don't post, so it's okay.
Perfect.
Breaking news as we put the show together today. Kyle Schwarber, Sam Yarnell doing what? Five years for the back with the Phillies? Is that what you got?
Yeah, 5 years and $150 million, Jason. It's the most money a DH will ever get paid year over year in baseball history. So the Phillies wanted their guy. They went out and they matched, if not exceeded, every single offer that Kyle Schwarber got, and he's returning to Philadelphia.
David, the winter meetings, when I was a teenager, this is a really true story, 30 some odd years ago. I used to sit up late at night listening to WFAN, waiting for the news that was going to break from the winter meetings. I mean, I used to get so excited for the winter meetings. And stuff still happens. But, teams are trying to get whatever deal they can. A lot of this stuff gets pushed back until trade deadline time. Is the winter meetings still what we think of it as?
It's definitely slowed down, right? It's the winter meetings have slowed down, but that's really kind of what we've seen in Major League Baseball over the last 4 or 5 years. It is just that slowing of the market and trying to wait out other teams. The difference is back in, we remember listening to it in early 2000s, the Yankees were the money maker, the power player. They walked in and set the tone and set the market. And now the Yankees are waiting on other teams. And when you do that, when you don't have just one team walking out there and just throwing out offers to the big boys right out of the gate, because everyone's waiting for the big players to sign first. And you don't have the Yankees doing that. You don't have one team just going out there. Yes, the Dodgers are getting guys, but they're getting guys later in the process. They're not getting them early. It's not like the first week of offseason they're getting guys. The Yankees used to just go out there and just hammer who they wanted, and then that moved the whole market. The pace started picking up. And they're not doing that.
How much of the foundation for deals is set up in this week, though? Even if deals don't get done, how much of those foundational conversations are taking place?
I've heard a lot of the deals that end up getting done during the year end up happening right now. It's the winter meetings are what spurs it, what gets it going, and then teams tend to wait and say, all right, let's see where the market works out. And then they go back to that conversation, hey, do you still want to do this? Let's talk. And like you said, a lot of that happens now. It might not come to fruition until All-Star break or whatever it is. But now is when those conversations lead to that stuff. Also, now is when you kind of throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks. And you're throwing ideas out there. You're just kind of maybe have a drink or two and say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of this? And then you kind of see what happens and what people are leaning towards.
Or if you're like the Dodgers, David, like you mentioned, you just go out and buy everybody, like they just did with Edwin Diaz. Obviously, his spot being taken in New York by Devin Williams, but now the Dodgers go out and add another piece to this bullpen, the reigning defending world champions. What do you make of one of the best closers of the last 5 years making his way to the best team of the last 2?
When does this stop? When does this stop with the Dodgers?
Sam's got an answer. Sam's got an answer. It's called next off season when we have a work stoppage.
1 year. That's when it stops. 1 year.
That's gonna be interesting. Right when they can't sign any more guys. I think it's a good sign for the Dodgers, and what we actually saw was their bullpen did need help. Their one weakness was the bullpen, and so this is an area that actually they needed help. It wasn't just an embarrassment of riches as much in that bullpen. I don't know if Edwin Diaz is going to give them what they're looking for over the long term, but good for Edwin. Right? Like you're sitting back going I just signed with the Dodgers. This is great. Everybody's fighting to sign with the Dodgers right now.
The Tigers make it clear that everybody's available, and that includes Tariq Skubal. Do you think he moves in the offseason, or do you think they push this as far back as they can or delay making a decision as long as they can to see where this team is, by the time we get to the trade deadline next summer?
This team has been surprising both ways in the last 2 years, right? Where 2 years ago, where they made that move in the second half and just it was crazy winning everything. Last year, where it was started really hot and slowed down until we got to the playoffs. So you don't quite know where this team is. I think they wait. I think they will wait and see where this team is. They have money on the back end. They have money. They've spent it before. They have been one of the highest payrolls in baseball, and it wasn't that long ago. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, they were some of the highest payrolls in baseball. So they have the money. It's just a matter of, do they believe in this team enough to sign him versus what they can get for Skubal, and do they think that'll help them more in the long run? I think he ends up staying a Tiger.
Wow!
Because I think they're going to put money down on that table when it matters the most. Or if he turns that money down, it's going to be just because he wants to see the market. They will make a play for him at some point. Whenever that point is, they will put money on the table. It's going to be up to Skubal to say no to a lot of money and probably a little hometown discount.
That's David Aardsma. He's going to hang with us for one more segment, more on the winter meetings, and also get his thoughts on Jeff Kent being the latest to head to Cooperstown, where he'll be enshrined next summer at the Baseball Hall of Fame. Lots more to do on Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Coming up in 10 minutes, some odds and ends. Get into a different kind of football. Want to stick around for that. Also some golf news, AP Athlete of the Year news too. The great David Aardsma, former big league reliever, closer, hangs out with us on the show. Couple of more winter meeting things I want to get your thoughts on. Kyle Tucker. And look, I mean, the Blue Jays have already been active in this offseason, David. What do you make of, Kyle Tucker going there visiting with the team and what the Blue Jays are doing, not just to kind of keep their foot on the pedal in this offseason, but trying to maybe even grow the gap between themselves and the Yankees?
Think about where we were at last year and their conversation with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And I believe, I don't know who said it. I know I had said it before, where Vladdy goes, the Blue Jays go. That's what it comes down to. Vladdy decided to stay, and look at the Blue Jays now. They're mere inches away from winning a World Series, in that first year. They've got George Springer, who's just been as consistent, as amazing as ever, and they're going after what a lot of people believe is the top free agent. Like, that is incredible turnaround on this organization, and a spot where we didn't know where they're going to be at all this year. And so I love that they are going after him. I think this is great for the Blue Jays. Kyle Tucker would be an amazing in the outfield out in Toronto. And you see them separating themselves from the rest of the division. They are building a larger and larger gap with some of their signings already, and going after Kyle Tucker all that will do is just increase that gap. And then it's just a matter of, can they get the same type of year out of guys like Clement, Jimenez, Barger? Can they get the same type of production out of those guys? That's all it's going to come down to.
David, we're starting to get World Baseball Classic rosters dripping out. I mean, at this point, we know the confirmed Team USA guys are like Judge, Skeens, Raleigh, Schwarber, Witt, Corbin Carroll, Gunnar, Pete Crow Armstrong, and a handful of pitchers.
I think Alonso too, right?
Yes, right. Pete Alonso as well. In terms of how we've seen the World Baseball Classic grow over the last 20 years, and with all of these star players getting ready to play in this next one and where baseball is at now, how do you think that that's impacting the game as a whole, not only on a national stage, but on an international stage as well?
On an international stage, it's having a huge impact, especially, we know about the big schools, the big teams, right? When you're talking about like Venezuela, Dominican, US, obviously Japan, and you get the big teams. The Netherlands have always been like surprisingly like right there with all those teams. those teams are always going to be big. Baseball is always going to be big in those places. That it's just kept promoting it, especially in all those other places. I don't know what it's done in the U.S. That's always a hard one because baseball is always kind of big. But it's a lot of those other countries, those smaller countries that are trying to get in, trying to get their foot in the door. And Israel, right? That's a big one for them to promote baseball. You're looking at Czech Republic from the last time, and what influence that had on just creating leagues around places that didn't have leagues, that didn't have places, creating a noticeability. You're seeing the amount of countries grow, and they're attempting to make the World Baseball Classic. So you have to love it. That's where I see the growth of baseball is those other smaller countries that never had teams. Just wait until we get like a real China team or a real India, like where they kind of get behind and start putting some money behind it. You're going to start seeing some athletes that can play sports they're just incredible athletes that would have chosen an Olympic sport or chosen a cricket. You never know what they're choosing because that's all their only choice they've ever had.
On Sunday, we learned Jeff Kent, the all-time leader in home runs for second baseman, was being inducted into the Hall of Fame next year. Obviously, the contemporary ballot era committee, whatever thing that they have, former players, media people, executives that take part in this thing. David, Jeff Kent gets in. I've made my case why I thought Don Mattingly should have got in and he didn't. We all know about the PED guys that didn't get in. What was your reaction to Kent being the only one getting in?
Now, I love that Jeff Kent got in. This is, for me, he's a Hall of Famer. I'm still amazed that he didn't get in the first ballot. You're the leading home run. And one of the key metrics in Major League Baseball history, like the key metric is home runs. Like that's how we judge Babe Ruth from the moment of go. And he's the leader at second base. He should have been in from the moment he was on the ballot. Should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. So this is just correcting, I believe, a wrong. And that's the whole idea of this contemporary panel, was just to correct wrongs, right? Him being the only one is just a slap in the face. A slap in the face of everybody. There are already PED users in. There already are. But we're sitting here and trying to hold Bonds and Clemens to this different standard than anybody else. Like, Jeff Kent played in that same era. Like Poppy was on the list. But we're not willing to give the bye to these two guys because they were the greatest at it. They were better than you at it. That to me still frustrates me. Is allow the Hall of Fame to be the best players, allow the museum to tell the story of those players and of those eras, and this ends it. This is, in all reality, this ends it for Bonds and Clemens.
How on earth is
they didn't get the 5 votes?
How's Gary Sheffield not a Hall of Famer? I mean, seriously. One of the most feared hitters in the game. Really, for his entire career, David. It drives me bonkers. We could spend all day on this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more off the air. But Jeff Kent, deserving of being in the Hall of Fame, but a lot of other guys that were deserving that got the shaft as well. David Aardsma, former big league reliever and closer, hanging out with us on the show. Check him out on SiriusXM MLB Radio and Man Cave Sports. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Tomorrow on the show, it's a Wednesday, which means Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com will be here. Lots to get to from around the NBA with Kurt. Couple of reminders, if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. The audio version of this show, Monday through Friday, available on your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. Anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show Monday through Friday, 45 minutes while you're in the car, in the shower, the treadmill, on a plane, on a train, wherever you may be. Make sure to check it out. Also, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Oh, if you haven't checked this out yet, what are you waiting for? Go and subscribe today. It's free. The Monday through Friday version of Sports Wrap is waiting there for you early every afternoon. 45 minutes, commercial free. We also have Sports Wrap shorts there. If you haven't checked these out yet, they're really awesome. Sports Wrap shorts are 1 to 3 minutes long. Usually they're only about a minute long. They're great for on the go. News breaks, we hop on SportsWrap Shorts and give you the scoop on what is going on. SportsWrap Shorts on our YouTube channel. Also available on our TikTok, SportsWrap Jason page, on our Instagram, SportsWrap Jason page. Go and check that out today. And without any further delay on this Tuesday edition of the show, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends is, we got to give a little weekend left over to football, but a different kind of football, Sam Yarnell. MLS, Inter Miami. Congratulations to Lionel Messi and the Inter Miami squad, and they're all pink. We love those uniforms. Inter Miami, your MLS Cup champions, Sam Yarnell. Lionel Messi delivering on the promise of an MLS Cup for Inter Miami, and they'll have a parade down Biscayne Boulevard, but this time it'll be for Inter Miami, Sam Yarnell.
Yeah, I was upset. I didn't want Inter Miami to win. I thought it would be a much better story for Vancouver to win. But, you know, obviously they didn't. The refs had other ideas. I think that a lot of MLS fans agree that that was a very controversially officiated MLS Cup final, especially after the Whitecaps had tied it in the 60th minute. But regardless, Jason, yes, nevertheless, the washed-up group of former La Liga players, who is it at this point? It's Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets. Is Sergio Busquets still playing, honestly? He's like 45. Yeah, he is. Rodrigo De Paul, good lord, Falcone. I mean, my goodness, it's literally like you took the 2018-19 La Liga All-Stars and just put them on a soccer team 8 years later. And that's who won the MLS Cup, so congratulations to them.
Sure. If they were standing in the room with me right now, I wouldn't know who they were, outside of Messi.
Wow.
I'm sorry, MLS still hasn't gotten across my radar yet.
I mean, let's just see here. Let's see here. On that, in their starting 11, between their 11, they have, 4 World Cups, and I would guess over 500 World Cup caps.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, again, Inter Miami, when you do what they do, eventually you'll run into one.
Congratulations, David Beckham, as well. Well done, sir. All right, to golf. Brooks Koepka has 1 year left on his Live Golf contract, but apparently the CEO, Scott O'Neill, isn't even sure if he's going to be playing in 2026. He could play on the DP World Tour. He has access to that. Is Brooks Koepka setting up a return potentially to the PGA Tour and ready to say goodbye to Live Golf, Sam Yarnell?
I mean, one would hope, right? I mean, I remember talking to you about this when the whole Live Golf thing first started and how bad it was that we weren't going to see Scotty in his prime against Brooks in his prime. And it's really sucked for the sport of golf. Well, let's be honest. Every week, the Scotty win streak last year was insane, right? And I think the Live Golf definitely had something to do with that. Everyone would agree with me on that. But objectively, the entire last 2 years of the PGA Tour would have been miles better if at every single event, instead of it's Scotty versus the field, it was, it's Scotty versus Brooks versus the field.
By the way, I said no on Scotty Scheffler last week on the show at the Hero, and he did not win. Thank you. Gave you all a little prediction market tip last week. Hope you took it. Hideki Matsuyama, your winner at the Hero this weekend. Last but not least, congratulations to Shohei Ohtani. He is your AP Athlete of the Year, Sam Yarnell. 4-time winner. He joins LeBron James, Tiger Woods. I'm not sure who else. I think there was somebody else whose name was
Serena.
Oh, maybe it was
assume,
Serena.
Right?
Could be.
I don't know.
But congratulations to Ohtani.
He has officially entered the conversation for, all-time GOAT, right? Like we talk about all of those people you mentioned, right? They're considered in the all-time GOAT category, right? Beyond your sport. We're talking about the greatest athletes of all time. And he's entered that conversation with his accolades at this point.
Yeah, he has. And he's done it in such a relatively short period of time. That's the other thing that I think we sometimes lose sight of. Congratulations to Shohei Ohtani. Congratulations to you for making it through the entire show if you were watching. We appreciate you doing so. Thank you to David Aardsma. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to all of you at home for watching again. I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here on Wednesday for an all-new edition of Sports Wrap. Kurt Heelan talks basketball with us then. Bye-bye. Hi there. I'm Jason Page. You like what you're watching? Subscribe. We've got Sports Wrap shorts on this channel. We've got the show. We've got clips from the show. What else do you have to do? You probably follow a lot of other things that aren't half as they're not half as exciting as this show is. So what are you waiting for? Click the subscribe button, follow the channel, watch the content. Bye.